Hi, I'm DJ Rad Key, and welcome to what is now my 79th vlog in the series. Thank you for staying with me. It is September 11th, 2018, an unfortunate day in world history, the history of humanity, of course. Can't deny the fact that 17 years ago today, some really bad things happened to good people. And I don't want to have a vlog focused on September 11th. But I would like to at least talk about the music of September 11th. It was an enormous day in music, in the release of music, and it was also a very interesting kind of musical purgatory time period. So, being that these are vlogs about DJing and music, and I do want to provide you knowledge, give you advice and an insight to what is a DJ, I'd like to give you my own kind of reflection on September 11th, that exact day, which was a Tuesday, and today is a Tuesday. I remember it vividly. I'd like to tell my story, and then also about the music of the time period. So to give you a historical kind of snapshot of my life, I had just graduated from business school the week before September 11th. And shout out to Mikey Latowski, who said, hey, let's go out to Vegas, man. Let's go out to Vegas. You're just finishing up school, and this will be cool. This will be a good time. Let's do it, bro. And we decided to do the Vegas thing. So we got out there. We had a couple great nights, actually like one of the most incredibly wild nights of my life, one of them, and ultimately had a great time. And I remember going to bed that night a little bit tired, thinking like, man, I'm super happy to be in Vegas, and I'm glad that we visited. I'm definitely moving out here. I'm 100% moving out here. I actually signed the paperwork for my apartment the first day I was there. First day in town in Las Vegas, signed paperwork for an apartment. I loved it there so much. I knew it fit. So that gets us to, like I said, the night before September 11th. I, of course, didn't expect, or nor did anybody in the world expect, what they would wake up to. And for us being the West Coast, it was, to me, I woke up, ESPN was on from the night before, because of Monday Night Football. And my buddy was still sleeping, and I said, hey, man, check what's on ESPN. The Pentagon's on fire. That was the first images that we got. I believe the Pentagon at that point had just been attacked. And then as, the minutes progressed and me and him were alertly watching like what's going on, they cut into the footage of what was the rest of the day. So that was my day, and an eerily quiet day, of course, on the Las Vegas Strip, an eerily quiet week. But I thought to kind of get myself back to what was a reality, even though Vegas really never was a reality. I thought I'd go buy a CD. I was really big into CD buying at the time. Yeah, in 2001, you could buy CDs on the internet. The internet was up and running, and Amazon and eBay allows you to purchase CDs online. But I physically like buying CDs, and I think the majority of people who bought CDs in 2001 still physically went to the store. So the Boulevard Mall, just east of the Las Vegas Strip off Maryland Parkway, where UNLV's at, of course, was still open, and I strutted into Best Buy and went in and bought an album. I actually bought Bob Dylan's Love and Theft. Was a big Bob Dylan fan, still am. Big Bob Dylan fan. Was a big album that day, and there was a bunch of big albums actually that were released that day. At the time they were big, and historically looking back, they all had big impacts. So I'll start with that one. Was Bob Dylan's follow-up to 1997's Time Out of Mind, which won the Grammy for Album of the Year. It actually won 3 Grammys, but Album of the Year, the most prestigious one he took home. It was a beautiful album, probably perfect as far as a folk rock guitar album, and it was a huge rebound from some of the kind of flops he had in the early 90s and 80s as far as going a different direction. So he bounces back with Love and Theft in 2001, of course, and ended up selling over 500,000 copies, so it's fairly successful as far as that goes. But the biggest release that day, of course, was Jay-Z's The Blueprint. Jay-Z's The Blueprint was released on September 11th. Jay-Z, who reps New York City hard. It was the #1 album that week, the following week when the charts came out, and ended up selling 2 million copies, and it's considered probably his second best album to Reasonable Doubt. At that time, he hadn't done anything for a minute, and he exploded. That album was huge as far as like hip hop. There was no one bigger than Jay-Z at that time in 2001. That album was enormous. It was an enormous success, selling 2 million albums, like I said. You also had Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey dropped Glitter. It was a career ender. She ended up selling 500,000 copies, and I have to mention it because it was like the one that was a big soundtrack album, but that kind of ended her career. And she was like the biggest female vocalist of that leading up to that point, kind of post Whitney Houston, you know, loud, successful, sold I don't know how many millions and millions of copies, but she released, of course, a dud that day. POD released Satellite that wanted to sell 3 million copies when it had, you know, it had the hits Alive, Youth of a Nation, and Boom. I mean, Alive and Youth of a Nation were two huge songs. They ended up being a pretty big band. So that's a lot of album sales in one day, but I'm saving one. I'm leaving one of the album releases out because I do have to go over the top 10 songs of what was that day on September 11th. And I'll give you my other little personal side segue story. But top 10 songs at that time, September 11th, 2001. Number 10, Hanging by a Moment, Lifehouse. It's such a catchy song. And I'm not going to cut this this vlog up and put little 30-second clips of all these songs. You can look them up. You are on YouTube already, and there's a thing called Spotify and many other options where you can look up these songs, listen to them. But it's a cool song, Hanging by a Moment, Lifehouse. That was big. That was number 10. Number 9, Drops of Jupiter Train. That's still a big song. That's like a wedding classic song. That's one of probably the biggest songs of that year. Drops of Jupiter Train. Everybody's heard that song. And then 8, It's Been a While, Stained. Yes, this is, you have to remember, the post-grunge, pre-In the Club, I would consider, time period in music. I'll repeat that again because it's worth noting. Post-grunge, pre-In the Club. So that is no longer are bands like Smashing Pumpkins, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden. Those bands are no longer, they're still active, they're still putting out music, but I would say they're no longer relevant. And that's no discredit. I love all those bands, but it was definitely a post-grunge time period, and it was definitely pre-In the Club. In the Club specifically was dropped January 7th, 2003, and that changed the game as far as hip-hop. So you've got this time period that none of the grunge bands are putting out music. If they are, it's not really breaking anything. And you've got this post-Eminem sound as far as hip-hop, and it's like a funner hip-hop. So again, Stained would definitely be in the post-grunge band category, and they were great. They're a great band. That's number 8. Number 7, Let Me Blow Your Mind by Eve. Awesome song, an awesome club song, and it kind of shows you too with the music that the DJs and the Las Vegas clubs, I mean all over, but specifically the Las Vegas clubs, the song was enormous. I'll still play that once in a while. It's a great tune, Let Me Blow Your Mind. That's number 7. Number 6, You Remind Me, Usher. This was early Usher. This was like pre-Confessions Usher. Usher's great. I love Usher. I still try to play Usher when I can. I'm playing at least some Usher in my lounge set for the Academy. Big Usher fan, especially early Usher. That's a great song. You Remind Me is a classic Usher song. Ended up becoming number 1 song, but yeah, it was number 6 at the time, September 11, 2001. Not top 5 now. Hit 'Em Up Style, Blue Cantrell. You've probably never heard it as a viewer, unless you're a DJ or like an old school hip hop fan. It's a cool song. It's definitely kind of a Missy Elliott time period song. It's got that bounce. It's got that hop. Kind of like the Eve song, Let Me Blow Your Mind. You can almost play those back to back if you're doing a little set with that time period. That's a great sound. Blue Cantrell. It's probably your only real hit. Hit 'Em Up Style. And then number 4, Someone to Call My Lover, Janet Jackson. Not familiar with it. Maybe it was just hot that week for whatever reason. I don't think it was a big club hit. Not too familiar with it. Did listen to it. I was really surprised it was number 4, but Janet Jackson might have had a hot week or something came up, you know, whatever. Number 3, Where the Party At? Jagged Edge with Nelly. Yeah, Nelly was more, this was like kind of the end, I would say end of Nelly's run, but Nelly was peaking right around 2001, 2002, 2003. This was his heyday. It wasn't his track, it was Jagged Edge, but Where the Party At's a great song, great hip-hop banger, classic hip-hop throwback, I guess you'd say. And then number 2, Fallen, Alicia Keys. Beautiful song. Alicia Keys is a fantastic artist. She's an unbelievable vocalist, songwriter. She's great. Falling's a great song. Not like a club banger, but anyway. But this is a club banger. I'm Real was the number 1 song in America at September 11th. The tragic day of September 11th, the number 1 song in America was I'm Real by J-Lo and Ja Rule. And it shows you what I mean about the post-grunge pre in the club. Because basically 50 said he just ended Ja Rule's career. The happy club kind of funny music was out, and it was just got gangster real quick with 50 Cent in the club. The lyrics got harder, the beats got harder, the thuggery got harder, music changed. So that was a cool little time period, though. I mean, unfortunate, of course, historically speaking, not a great time, but not a great time for me either, like looking for work and stuff. It was tough out in Vegas as a new guy with really no experience and fairly egotistical looking for work, but I did find work, and Vegas was a great time. And again, in 2001, September 11th, wasn't a great time to be anywhere, but you know, I do give my heartfelt apologies to anybody that might have passed away during the events or the things that followed up. because of the events. And it's a sad day in America, but hope you learned a lot about the music. But here's a little bit addition to this vlog. In researching it, I was thinking, before I even saw what the #1 song was or what the biggest artists were, I was thinking, I'm like, what do I think of when I think of 2001? And I think of Nickelback. Nickelback, you remind me, Silver Side Up, that album was released on September 11th. That album ended up selling 6 million copies. And of course, How You Remind Me ended up being the #1 song of the decade. And that song was actually released as a single August 21st, but the album was released that day. And I was thinking, how is Nickelback not the #1 song? And that was right. The cusp was, that winter was when Nickelback was, like I said, that Stain, that post-grunge sound, you know. Another kind of a post-grunge band, but definitely artistically that was superb. And that also kind of reminds me of that time period was Incubus. And that song, their song Drive, one of their probably bigger hits, their biggest hit was the 20th song in America at the time. I loved Incubus. That also kind of gives you an idea of that time period. Also, Ja Rule, like I said, is #1 song. But yeah, the Ja Rule, Incubus, Nickelback sound. Of course, Jay-Z. Ludacris was another one. He was kind of in that hip-hop, fun hip-hop sound. I mean, his career catalog spent more than a couple of years, but he was big. He was big right around that time because he still had success in the old-school hip-hop people. Nate Dogg was still putting stuff out, and Snoop Dogg. And there was still some of the old-school throwback rappers. Dre was getting involved. Eminem was producing stuff. Mary J. Blige had the #12 song with Family Affair. Puff Daddy was putting tracks out. He had a couple tracks on the Hot 100. So you saw that old-school vibe. And then you had the rise of newer bands like Sum 41. If someone was like, hey, what's other than the post-grunge sound of Stain and Nickelback or some other rock music, I would say like Sum 41. Linkin Park to me is like an unbelievable band. I don't want to time just that time period, but that kind of gives you an idea of like there was some really good bands out. And Sum 41 had Fat Lip, of course. That was the 77th biggest song in America. But that's the rundown. I mean, of course, a horribly sad day. 17 years ago, it's unbelievable. Time flies by fast. But that's what people were listening to. Maybe not that day, but I mean, and taking it all in. I mean, that was a big day for album sales, a cool day for music. But, again, salute to everyone, and be good to people, man. Stuff like that doesn't happen if you're good to people, as always. See what is DJ Rad Key on djradkey.com, and of course, phone a friend you haven't talked to, smile at a stranger, just be good to people. Be good to people, and as always, peace.